Jim Cooper. Right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the March meeting of the Thurston Regional Housing Council. We'll start with welcome and introductions. Don't know if we have any first-time attendees here, but here's Jim. So why don't we just start with Jim Cooper and City of Olympia. Jim, could you just introduce yourself and any staff who may be with you? Jim, can you hear us? Well, let's move on to Michael and Tumwater.
Hi, Michael Althauser, Tumwater City Council. I'm also joined by Councilmember Joan Cathy, our City Administrator John Doan, and also Brad Medrud from our Planning Department. Happy to be here.
Hey, glad to see that. All righty. Jim, are you hearing us now to introduce yourself and staff?
Yes, sorry, Caroline. I was having trouble transitioning from work to this work. So I'm Jim Cooper with the City Council in Olympia, and I see from Olympia Keith Staley, our Assistant City Manager, and I think that's it for today.
All righty, great. And Carolina Mejia is with us now. Carolina?
Hi, Carolina Mejia, Thurston County Commissioner, and with me today I have Tom Webster, Keely Marino, our County Manager, Ramiro Chavez, Jacinda Stelgis, and as they're on the attendees list is Elisa Sparkman as well as Megan Porter. Thank you.
Looks like we've got Jacinda here too.
Oh, I thought I said Jacinda. I'm sorry, Jacinda, if I said you.
Okay, no problem. All righty. And then from Yelm.
Yes, this is Brian Hess, Yelm Council member, and I believe I'm it. I have reached out to my city administrator as well as trying to get somebody on planning to join me and working on for a future meeting that happening. Thank you for having me here. Absolutely.
Glad you are here. All right, and I'm Carolyn Cox representing City of Lacey. We have here our alternate member, Lacey Mayor Andy Ryder, our city manager, Scott Spence, and Kelly Adams from our city staff. Am I missing any Lacey folks?
Rick Walk.
Oh, is Rick in there too? Okay, his name's not showing, but all righty. Well, I want to start with apologies for the last meeting. I had asked that people use the raise hand function to get attention, and then I could not see your raised hands on my iPad, which is what I usually use for meetings. So I've switched to an older personal PC laptop today, and I'm going to hope for the best. So thank you all for bearing with me, and special thanks to Rick Walk, who was furiously texting me with so-and-so has their hands raised, and then so-and-so is next, and so-and-so is next. And he really was a big help, and kind of, I felt very supported. I think it definitely made the meeting go better. So thank you, Rick. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda to see if there are any changes you want to make or additions? If not, could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
All righty. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is unanimously approved. Kelly told me right before we started that we don't have anybody signed up for public comment. I just wanted to double check and make sure that hasn't changed. Anybody phoned in or anything, Kelly? Any latest?
I see no change. There are no registrations for public comment, Chair Cox.
All righty. Thank you. Okay, on to minutes from our February meeting. Anybody have a comment on the minutes? corrections?
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes from the February 23rd meeting.
Okay, been moved by Brian. So here, second.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Carolina. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, all in favor of approval, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously. Next up is funding recommendations on the 1277 funds, and that goes to Tom Webster.
Good evening, everyone. Tom Webster with Thurston County. So I am going to share my screen to show you what we have for funding. So you will recall this past October, we issued an RFP with funds awarded under the new 1277 document recording fee legislation. The county received approximately $1.6 million in funds that were dedicated for rapid rehousing and hotel vouchers or hoteling programs. We issued an RFP, received 6 applications, and based on recommendations, moved forward with 6 awards. We took that to the county commissioners. The county commissioners approved moving forward with those contracts. Subsequently, before executing those contracts, the Board of County Commissioners at this time has directed us not to sign the contract with Community Action Council, and has indicated that those funds should be reallocated to other organizations. So we're here today to let you know, let the RHC bring that $100,000 back in available funding for direction from the RHC on how you would like, what recommendation to bring back to the Board of County Commissioners on the use of those funds. On your screen is a summary of the other contracts that were awarded, including Family Support Center, Love Abounds here, Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, Pierce County AIDS Foundation, and Safe Place. Most of in general, the recommendations were to fully fund those activities that supported rapid rehousing. So that was the Safe Place, the PCAF, and Family Support Center. And then the hoteling programs received less than their full award, with Olympia Mutual Aid Partners having the largest request, but also and the largest award, but also receiving the smallest amounts of percentage. Well, Love Abounds here also received substantially less than their initial request, and that was because their rapid rehousing activity that they proposed was not determined to be eligible under the requirements of the program. So we're here to ask for your direction on how to move forward. We did not have an opportunity to bring this to the funding work group for discussion before bringing it here, so we're bringing this to you prior to any discussion at the funding work group. So one option you have would be to kind of recommend that the funding work group discuss this before bringing it back to you, but we did want to bring this to your attention. So I would throw out 2 other possible alternatives, but these have not been discussed at the technical team or at any level. Would be because the Family Support Center and Olympia Mutual Aid Partners were the ones that to split the funding between those 2 activities, family support, 50,000 each, or to give, because Olympia Mutual Aid Partners took the largest hit from their award and are having the largest hotel program, that they could certainly use another $100,000. But really wanted to bring this to your attention and look to you for guidance on moving forward.
Okay. Tom all right, I see Brian has his hand raised. Brian?
Yes, I was just making sure I was called upon. What I would like to ask in reference to this, reading through it, I see that we helped out with rent and we have the hotel stays. For the ones that did the hotel stays, I think it'd be nice to get some feedback on how effective that was. And what I mean by that is, were those individuals, while staying at the hotel, did they get the services that they needed to be able to move further and that they did not slip back into homelessness, into the homeless camps or anything else like that. Is there any reports or anything like that that we could look at so that if the constituency happens to, when they hear about these things, that's something that they might want to hear about, is how effective was the money being spent?
Yep, understood. So at this point, these programs are very new. Most of the contracts were signed in February. So these activities have just begun. The funding goes through June 30th of 2023. So at this time, we do not have any reports on the programs and how effective they've been. They've just been starting up. So they're the early startup phases.
Oh, okay, I appreciate that. I just saw the awards October 2021. So I thought the money had already gone out and that we're looking at, finalizing everything. So thank you for that update.
Yeah, and that's just a clarification on that, those awards. And then we had to go to Commerce. The Department of Commerce had to kind of approve and then provide those funds. So there were some just bureaucratic processes before we could actually make those contract awards, which happened kind of just in the last, since the end of January, mostly in February.
Chair Cox, I do have actually an update on that Tom does not have.
Okay, good.
So the Olympia Mutual Aid Partners took over some of the hotel stays that were initiated by the clearing of the Deschutes encampment in December of 2021. They had about 20 rooms. They have, just today, I got a text that 3 more have been placed at the Unity Commons. There were a total of about 6 to 8 that were moved into permanent housing from the hotel stays, and the bulk of those, it's getting quicker now, happened in the last, since the Olympia Mutual Aid Partners has been able to start their hotel program.
Great. Well, I hope that helps a little bit with Brian's questions. Thank you, Keely. Tom, I'm not sure everybody has the best handle on pulling up. Brian, I'll get to you in just a second.
Not a problem.
Okay. On pulling the CAC funds and why they were pulled. And then I would add to that just the question of whether with the agency now the county is contracting with, is there any way that could help pick up the work that CAC was doing here or not?
Yeah, and I'm going to defer to the county manager to answer your question on the CAC contract.
All righty.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. With all due respect, I don't think this is an appropriate setting for me to go into the details of with the Community Action Council matters. Certainly, we can touch base on the vendor. And Tom can touch base as to when we're planning to have the vendor up and running to continue to provide services to our members of our community. Thank you.
Okay, I get where you're coming from on that. Anybody have a Jim?
You said you'd go back to Brian. Did he have another question just before I jump
Thank
in?
you. All right. Yes, Brian.
Because if I heard Mr. Webster correctly, he was saying that there's $100,000 for us as a committee to kind of try to figure out what to do with. Did I hear that correctly? In other words, we're looking for recommendations on what to do with that, Mr. Webster.
Yes, that is correct. We're looking for a recommendation from this body to take to the Board of County Commissioners on the use of that $100,000.
Okay. I'm just wondering, does it have to go to one of these organizations, or could we hold that $100,000 as a reserve to help out the organizations that are approaching the camps to help provide services that maybe we could use it to help with the camp cleanups when they get removed, or to even provide services at the camps for cleanliness? I'm just asking if that money could be used for something like that.
So these funds, that would not be an eligible use for these funds. These funds need to be used for either rapid rehousing activities or for hotel vouchers. So you could choose to kind of hold on to these funds and award them at a later date to a different organization. You're not required to award those funds to any of these organizations. Whether you would have to go through another RFP process or what the process to make sure that those funds were properly procured. We would also have to need to do an amendment with the Department of Commerce. We've notified the Department of Commerce on the use of our funds. That's not an obstacle, but just a process that we would need to go through. So there's certainly a lot of flexibility in terms of how you move forward with these funds. However, they do need to be used for either rapid rehousing or for supporting hotel stays, for hotel vouchers.
And thank you for that clarification. And if we're looking for a suggestion, I would recommend that we hold on to the funds for another organization to come out while the springtime comes along and see if we might be able to help out another organization, because the others, they all have their plans and they got the funds that they were kind of planning on. We might have other, like maybe out in the south, Thurston County might have some organizations that might need to help out some of the homeless that are in that area for rapid rehousing and hotel stays.
Thank you. Jim, did you have a comment?
Yeah, a couple quick questions. Tom, is there a spend down rule on 1277?
No,
Okay.
no, it just needs to be spent by June 30th of 2023.
Okay. And remind us, aren't we getting another chunk sometime in the next quarter of that same pot?
Yes, we are anticipating another chunk. Hopefully we'll learn about that in the next month or so.
Like sizable, like comparable to this size of allocations?
Yes, and hopefully I would anticipate larger. Probably
Okay.
I'm going to estimate in the $2.5 to $3 million range, but that's a real guesstimate.
Okay. And then my last question is it, which of the other grantees population or methodology that they were proposing matches the most to the CAC, or is there a void left by not having the CAC do what it was saying it was going to do specifically? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the void CAC serves a single adult population. So that is a void. The other kind of rapid rehousing providers, PCAF, Pierce County AIDS Foundation, and Safe Place has very targeted populations that they are serving. Family Support Center is also doing hotels. So there is a gap in the broader single adult population that is not being served.
Okay. Yeah, I could go either way, like split it, or I kind of like the idea of holding it back for a minute in case, like having a small hotel reserve might not be a bad idea as we get closer to the end of the year as well, knowing that more money is coming. But I don't know if I have the right answer in my own head at the moment.
Any other thoughts on that?
Michael has his hand up.
Michael?
Yeah, I guess my first question is just a process questions. So we sent this set of recommendations to the county for approval. Amongst them was the CAC piece, and that approval was rejected for the reasons we all have read about. So if we do something here, we're not voting to take that away because the county commission has already made that decision, correct? So now our job is to come up with an alternative path. We're not having a vote on really anything having to do with the Community Action Council. We're having a vote on what to do with $100,000. Is that an accurate summary of where we are right now? Okay, I see head nods.
Yes, I would characterize that as accurate.
Okay, thanks. I think so. I guess my question is, like, we have these two entities that didn't get the full funding that they were hoping for, that both seem to be providing a service that's related in nature and might serve some similar populations. And that money just went out the door now. So I would assume that, like, the spending is linear over time. Like if giving some of them, like, let's say we did it 50-50 and giving them each $50,000, like, not doing that today, I don't think would impact service, because giving them more money means they could do this service for longer. Is that right? Like it seems like we don't really need to decide today, because really the amount of money we gave them means that they'll run out of hotel vouchers sooner because we didn't give them the full amount they were requesting, but they're not going to run out of money in a month. Or would that money then be used to expand? You could do more vouchers now in the meantime. Like, I'm trying to understand whether not giving the money now means that someone's experiencing the weather outside in the meantime. And I don't really have a firm grasp on whether that's the case.
Yeah, if I could do my best to answer, and not having talked to the agencies directly, this is a little bit of speculation or my understanding of their programs on my part. So for Family Support Center, their program is designed where there are a certain number of hotel rooms that they will be paying for over the next 18 months. And so providing that additional funding now may allow them to add a hotel room or two to that ongoing, to the number of hotel rooms that they're providing, because they're providing a consistent number of hotel rooms over the length of the contract.
Okay.
For OLIMAP, there is fluctuation. And so I think for OLIMAP, and I looked at Keely to correct me if she feels differently, that an additional funding later on would allow them to maybe do more hotels later on, but it is less impactful on their immediate program, other than knowing that, trying to make sure that those funds can last for the whole 18 months and knowing kind of what they have available. But those hotel rooms fluctuate and go up and down based on the need. So I think there'll be a less immediate impact on the OLIMAP program.
Okay. I mean, with that in mind, I think I'm probably partial to just splitting it 50-50, because if that means that we can get another room online now, then having that money sit in an account when we know we're getting another even larger infusion in the next quarter that could meet that unmet single adult need at that point in time, I think makes sense to me. I mean, some of our, like we're not going to be able to issue an RFP and then get the money out for a new single adult program between now and when we get the next infusion of cash. So it makes sense to me to try to put the dollars in the field when they can help people as soon as possible. But I'm interested in what other people think too.
Right. So you're proposing or suggesting maybe 50-50 split between what and what?
I think it was Family Support Center that we funded maybe 59K under their ask, and then OLIMAP we funded significantly more under their ask, but I would just split it 50-50 between the two.
Okay. I could certainly live with that. Want to put that in the form of a motion?
Got Brian and then Carolyn.
Okay, Brian?
Looking at it, if we're going to give the money, I don't think 50-50 would be appropriate. And the reason why I don't think it would be appropriate is, with one, you're giving them a larger percentage back to them, and then the other one, not as much. And it'd be very interesting to know which one would the money go furthest with. And looking at it, like for Family Support Center, it's 6 hotels per night. And then when you look at OLIMAP, you're looking at 250 people being served. And also I'm looking at it as, if we want to do it, we can split it. We could do a little bit better percentage, more towards OLIMAP than to Family Support. But if that's what we want to do, that's what I would recommend.
Okay. Carolina?
I was kind of just going to follow that. I'm really leaning towards whatever the rest of the board leans on this. If we want to do it for reserves, I hadn't even thought of that. So thank you for, bringing that option up. I think it's a great idea, but if we want to split it up, whichever percentage to each organization, I'm okay with that too.
Alrighty.
Jim's hand is up, sorry.
Oh,
I guess just one
Yeah.
follow-up based on Brian's line of questioning. Tom, is there a bigger need in the individuals, single adults, than in the family? If we think about it that way, should more of it go to OLIMAP because that's where we intended that's the population we intended that money for in the original award? Or is that
That's
a hard calculus?
That's a hard calculus for me to make in terms of where the greatest need is. There's certainly need in all those. I would say there's a little bit of difference in terms of a population being served. OLIMAP is serving those who are literally homeless, who may need a hotel if they're kind of a sweep of a camp, or if they're transitioning into permanent housing and they need a little bit of stability, where the rapid rehousing is more of a permanent housing solution, getting someone to hopefully long-term housing. So slightly different populations, although certainly still targeting kind of those who are experiencing homelessness. To try to quantify the greater need, maybe Keely can answer that better than I can. I would have a hard time indicating where the greater need is.
I think it's a little bit of 6 of one, half a dozen the other, in that there's not going to be less of a need for people to come inside for whatever reason in the next year with regards to the hoteling program. But there's a significant number of people on the streets. Also, we need more people moving into permanent housing, absolutely. And I know that there are barriers to that just by the nature of not really having people getting rapid rehousing dollars and not necessarily finding places to use them is, anecdotally what we hear, but they're both equally important. Certainly, not having rapid rehousing, $100,000 worth of rapid rehousing has an impact. So I'm hard pressed to say what we have a greater need of at this time.
But there's a need everywhere.
Oh, there's a need everywhere, sure.
Okay.
Especially in the single adult population and the family population, both of great need. So
Yeah, I'm inclined to go the route of 50-50. Though I think I would lean a little bit more towards Brian's take on it if I didn't know there was another RFP that we would put out soon. So we're gonna have another pot of money. So let's move this, and then we can talk about whether we want to have a reserve as part of that larger pot.
all right.
I just wanted to add, I just got done doing the calculations. For Family Support Center, they got funded 87% of what they asked. Olympia Maps, they got funded 53% of what they asked. So that is something I'd like you to take into consideration, is one got funded 87%, the other one got funded 53. So, a 50-50, you're making one almost whole, the other one you're still very short of, just to add.
Thanks, Brian. So, anybody want to offer a motion on how we utilize these funds?
I guess I can give it a shot. Or are you gonna go for it, Michael? You give it a shot.
I'll defer. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, Jim.
Okay, so I move that we reallocate the $100,000 of 1277 funds, 50,000 to the Family Support Center, and 50,000 to OLIMAP.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? Brian?
Again, I just want to reiterate that, yes, the 50,000 to each is a good idea, but I also think that if you're looking at, when we're looking at how we pay out and things like that, you have Safe Place that they were even shorted on their funding, and a few others, and to go with that 50-50, I just fear that some people might see that family support's being waived more heavily, and that the funds aren't being distributed evenly accordingly, if that makes sense. I just have that concern.
Do you want to offer an amendment to the motion? Or
If I if I could, the amendment that I would offer is that we do 65% or 65,000 to Olympia MAP and 35 to family support. And that will kind of help them out. Unless somebody were to say that adding 35 is just not even helping them out at all. It just kind of puts them in a bind.
Are you offering that as a friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment, yes.
Okay, Jim, would you accept the friendly amendment?
My lawyer told me not to do those anymore.
Okay, well, in that case, why don't we vote first on the amendment to see if that,
You have to have a second on the amendment, Carolyn. And right as he was talking, Tom raised his hand and so did Michael. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
thank you. I'm still not seeing those well. So Tom and then Michael.
Yeah, just one point on what Brian made on the Safe Place application. It was funded for less than their ask. A part of their funding request was determined to be ineligible. So the reduction in the Safe Place request was for a portion of the request was determined to be ineligible for the purposes of this grant. But
So
otherwise, the rapid rehousing was fully funded or extremely close to fully funded.
Okay. And then was it Michael next?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate Brian's comments. I think the reason why 50-50 makes sense to me is sort of because of how this rolls out on the ground, according to my understanding. Like when we get the new tranche of funding, like yes, Oli Maps was funded at a much lower percentage than what they asked for, but adding new funding to that adds service on the back end as opposed to increasing capacity in the now. Whereas if we look at Family Support Center, adding more funding now means that they can maintain a higher level of service throughout the duration of the time in which they're providing that service to the community. So I totally recognize that those percentages are different, right? This is not proportional, but I think that proportional issue will be rectified when we go through the next funding tranche, because at that point in time, that's when we can choose to extend Oli Maps and would then fund the rest of those services when we get more money, if that's what the body ultimately decides to do. So I think 50-50, like I totally get your point. I just think 50-50 makes more sense in terms of providing an enhanced level of service to people right now, instead of extending the service that we have a pretty strong likelihood of already extending via the next pot anyway.
Thank you. But do I hear a second for the motion to amend the original motion? Hearing none, the amendment dies. And we're back to the original motion that Jim proposed for a 50-50 split of the funds between Family Support Center and Oli Map. Is there any other discussion before we vote? All in favor of spending of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. That was a lively and thoughtful discussion. Alrighty. Time for the Treasury rental assistance update.
All right, so I will, may I go ahead, Madam Chair?
Yeah, please. I'm sorry. I was looking to see whose that was.
Sorry for jumping the gun.
No, you're good.
So just a brief update on where the county is with our rental assistance program, and kind of focused on how the county is moving forward. At this point, the county, we have executed a contract with a firm known as Live Stories to implement our rent assistance program. So this is the Treasury Rent Assistance Program. This is an organization that is also providing similar services in other counties and jurisdictions in Washington. So they're working with City of Spokane, Yakima County, and Skagit County are just a couple other examples. They also have a contract with the Department of Commerce. So we do have a signed contract with them. They were working on getting their program up and running. We expect that they will be able to start serving some of the priority clients, and we've identified priority clients as being those who had an approved application with CAC that had not been paid or an in-process application. So we'll be prioritizing those people to make sure that their assistance payments go out first. So we're hoping that by March 30th, they will be able to start working with those clients and begin processing to move those applications forward to issue checks. We're also in the process of contracting with 5 local partner agencies to assist clients submit applications through Live Stories. So those 5 agencies are Family Sports Center of South Sound, Senior Services of South Sound, Safe Place, Innovations Human Trafficking Collaborative, and CLO. So those are organizations that, with the exception, Senior Services new. The other 4 were partnering with CAC to help their clients submit applications. So we are finalizing contracts with those organizations. We continue partnering with them so they can submit applications through those partners directly to Live Stories. We are receiving information. CAC has been providing us information on their existing clients to facilitate us being able to continue to serve those applications or those applicants who are kind of in process, who are not able to be paid by CAC. So we continue to move forward. We have a email list we've collected. Last I heard was approximately maybe 600 names of people who've reached out to the county with information, and we were trying to send out regular updates to keep people informed, both tenants, landlords, and other interested parties. So through our website, people can go and sign up for our email list to continue to get updates on as we move forward with this process. So that is the update I have for you this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
Anybody have a question for Tom? Jim does. Okay.
Yeah, Tom, I was just curious, what mechanisms do you have in place, if any, to prevent eviction in the group of folks who are already approved for funding?
Yeah, so we are, we've been communicating with landlords and asking, in some ways we're asking for landlords' patience and understanding. We are also in communication with the Dispute Resolution Center. So Dispute Resolution Center continues to receive referrals. If someone does receive a 14-day notice, they're being referred, and those folks will also be referred to Live Stories. We're working out that partnership and the logistics. So we continue to kind of work with the Dispute Resolution Center as people receive a 14-day notice. They need to be notified of this program through the eviction resolution pilot program. So yes, but
Okay.
we know there's a lot of anxiety about that, and we have heard stories of landlords moving forward with evictions, and so we're working as fast as we can to make sure the program is up and running and making the connections to limit the harm that's potentially being done.
And you might have already said this, I apologize. Remind us how much is left to allocate from that funding source with the new vendor?
Our current contract with Live Stories right now is for $5 million. Depending on, as we kind of work with CAC under this kind of the current status, we'll determine if there's any additional money there. There may be a little bit. But right now the contract with Live Stories is for $5 million.
But that could be like existing payments for people that are already in the system. That won't all be for new clients, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's enough.
Okay. Other questions for Tom? Okay. Tom, I think you and Jim got mostly at the concern I had, was just you know, what we are doing to try to minimize harm to the people who are affected by this. You mentioned that evictions are up. Do you know if those are all for non-payment, or are there other reasons for the evictions?
I'm not sure. The ones we've heard about are mostly for non-payment.
Okay.
But I have a very small window into that, so I'm sure there's other circumstances out there that we're not aware of.
Well, true. All right. Well, from where I sit, you all have just done an amazing job to try to patch this back together and get help back out into the community. So I know it
Yeah.
hasn't been. No, it hasn't been easy. So thank you.
The other thing I will say is we have reached out to some of your jurisdictions, utilities regarding shutoffs. So we have made a request, especially where there's a jurisdiction, a water shutoff, and asking kind of for a delay. So we appreciate your support and withholding or pausing any kind of water or utility shutoffs for those folks who do have kind of outstanding applications. So we have made some requests to various jurisdictions in that regard. So appreciate your support in that effort.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Carol?
Absolutely.
Tom, have you heard of any landlords kind of rejecting the payments, as like rejecting it as an invalid source of income? Like most of our, I know that Tumwater, I think Olympia also has ordinances preventing discrimination in the housing context against discriminating against the source of income. But I had heard through the grapevine a couple of folks who had their those funds not be accepted by their landlords. So is that a widespread thing, or could that be like a one-off where you have a small landlord who wanted to turn a unit over for whatever reason?
Yeah, so our understanding based on previous experience and previous discussions with CAC is that does happen occasionally. I don't know if I would call it widespread. And the hesitancy tends to be around as part of this program, the landlord has to agree not to raise the rent for 6 months or not to evict for 6 months and kind of accept this as full payment. So there's some hesitancy on the part of landlords in limited situations to accept some of the terms that do come with these funds, specifically around generally kind of not being able to raise the rents for a period of time. So that's where it's not so much not accepting it as income, but it's more kind of the terms that come with kind of accepting that payment.
Okay.
And I think that's still relatively limited, but it does happen occasionally.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Tom? Well, thank you very much for the update on that. And now it's on to the tech team working group updates. Keely and Tom. Going to start with home funds.
Yes, but I'm looking to Tom.
Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. And I'm going to turn this a little bit over to Ramiro and City of Olympia. So right now we are looking to have a schedule a meeting between City of Olympia and county to discuss moving forward with an ILA between the city and county around the merging of the Olympia Home Fund and the countywide home fund. So that meeting will hopefully be taking place here very soon. I don't know if Ramiro or Keith have any updates, but right now we're just looking to kind of schedule that meeting so we can all be on the same page as a first step of how these funds merge moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Tom and I did have a chance to start drafting an outline for an ILA. I shared that with Councilmember Cooper and the mayor pro tem. They provided me with some feedback, and I've provided them a draft based on what I thought I heard from them on Monday. And when we wrap that up, we're going to be contacting Romero and moving forward with a meeting of some sort with the county and probably Commissioner Mejia as well. So that's where we're at.
Just today I connected with Jay Bernie and we're working on setting up the meeting. So I'm particularly very excited to continue with the process. Keith, if you have a revised outline, can you share with me and Tom?
I sure will, just as soon as I hear back from the mayor and the mayor pro tem and Councilmember Cooper, and I'll be able to give you a final draft of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Any questions for and about home fund? All righty. We move on to hotel acquisition.
I'm gonna let Rick or Scott Spence, Scott, I don't see Scott, yeah, there's Scott. So I'll let Lacey kind of take the lead on this one.
All right. Okay, guys, flip a coin. Who's gonna take that one?
I think I could just real kind of high level. There's obviously still interest from the city of Lacey as well as Thurston County. I think the next steps for us to go forward is to figure out what model that would be to operate a building like a hotel, and then also find a provider that would actually meet that need. So we're exploring that right now. We hope to get those answers within I'd say a 45-day period, and that will be the next steps.
Okay.
Did I miss anything, Romero or Tom?
No, that right on point. I did engage the Board of County Commissioners that is still an interest, and how I left them is exactly what Scott just stated. I need to come back when we have a sustainable model for this particular venture.
All righty. Any
Councilmember
questions?
Cooper has a question.
Jim?
I was just curious, Scott, does that mean you're under contract and in formal feasibility or not yet?
No, we're exploring what a model would actually work for both parties. And then once we have that sort of figured out, then who could be a provider that's in the Seattle area, Tacoma area, wherever in state of Washington be willing to be able to do that. I think we're a little bit concerned about, is there a nonprofit that has the capabilities of doing a large unit structure?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to property acquisition.
And this is for City of Olympia, Keith.
Yeah, we are now the proud owners of property on Franz Anderson Road in partnership with our friends from the county. We acquired the 6-acre plus or minus parcel on, I think it was March 15th. We are in the development process right now, looking at how that facility can be improved. Yeah.
Great. Congratulations. A big step. Any questions for Keith on that? I guess I would ask kind of what's your sense of timing now on next steps? And
So I have a meeting coming up soon with our county engineer. We are going to be hiring an outside consultant to help with the design work for this facility. We're anticipating that it would be the first part of 2023 that we would have a usable facility. There's utility work, there's site work that's going to need to take place. And then it depends on, what sort of facility do we want to have? How big of a facility? Is it one facility or is it two facilities? So there's definitely questions, and I, of course, will be working with Tom and Keeley and Romero to sort through those and to bring you something that you can look at, because the critical question is, one, we can build the facility, but operations is going to be, integral, obviously, to the success of the facility. And at this point, there are not funds identified for the operation. So our intent is definitely to come back to the RHC and say, we're ready to move forward with construction. Now let's firm up our operations plan.
Okay. Anything else on that one? Okay.
Looks like Jim has his hand up.
Oh, he does. Okay, Jim.
Just real quick, because the last two items have both significant new operating conversations and costs. Is the funding group starting to look at that in reference to the next rounds of funding and how that will look? I'm starting to imagine the RHC is holding operations money off the top for the projects that we're partnered in, but how far down that road are we, Tom?
Not very far. So at this point, the funding work group has not met the last month or two partially for various reasons, but we're waiting for guidance from Commerce on the 1277 funds. So in terms of what's going to be allowable for the use of those funds. And then I think, the home fund kind of discussion and that ILA will have a big impact on funding moving forward. And then there's the 1406 funds potentially out there as well. Those have been committed for the next 2 years. So I think as the RHC goes into its retreat and kind of thinks through some of these questions, we've not got into the details of some of those funding discussions. So we're waiting for a little bit of guidance from Commerce and then waiting to see exactly on the home fund how that kind of discussion and structure plays out.
Thanks.
Can I ask a follow-up about that, Carolyn?
Please.
So, Tom, wasn't there, is that also then when the funding group meets, will there also be an examination of the state budget that passed? Because aren't there some massive new pots of money for rapid acquisition capital and creating facilities in the state budget? I don't know if that's just CHG dollars or if there's other broader dollars that might be even more flexible than that, but.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That is not something that traditionally the funding work group has kind of looked at those bigger pots of money, but I think it's something that group can take a look at. And to be honest, that's been something I know that our offices need to look at more closely and just haven't had the capacity right now to kind of do so. But I think whether that's appropriate for the funding work group, yes, looking at the what's in the state budget is appropriate.
Yes, I think it was like $700 million or something. There's just a very large, which a lot of that I think probably also goes directly to services and stuff, maybe not necessarily capital acquisition or development, but it seems like there's a pretty a once in a while opportunity to try to get some of that funding infused into the community.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else? Okay. Next up is Built for Zero, I guess.
I think right before that is scattered site.
Oh, right. Sorry.
That's okay. So that related to this conversation, as Councilmember Cooper just brought up, is scattered site is it's a pilot project. And it will be coming to a close at the end of June. And so we just wanted to start the conversation at this point to bear that in mind, that, for instance, procurement aside, if Franz Anderson Road becomes a safe parking facility and that agency was the one that was chosen to provide those services, that would be potentially a 6 or 7 month gap in funding for the Scatter Site pilot project. I know that they've engaged in a partnership with First Christian Church in the last month to start providing support for the New Hope Village that's there, and have moved their offices into First Christian Church with the intention of being able to do some hazardous weather response if needed. So a pretty vital program that we're getting a lot of really good information and data from. And I think our final report will be great, however, and really informative and come with some great recommendations. And just wanted to bring the Regional Housing Council's awareness to the fact that there aren't any funds earmarked at this time to move that scattered site program forward. 1277 certainly would be, they'd be eligible for those funds theoretically, depending on the guidelines as they come out, but it is just something we wanted to start talking about now.
And if I can add on to Keely's point there, just to give a little update on funding, this was funded out of the 2163 fund balance. You'll recall last year we had a pretty healthy 2163 fund balance, and there's an expectation that maybe even a little bit more. Right now, we're seeing substantial decreases in our 2163 revenue collections, with fewer people refinancing, mortgage interest rates creeping up. You know, the last month we saw, just as an example, close to $100,000 fewer in the month of January for 2022 than we saw collected in January 2021. So we are seeing substantial decreases in our 2163 in revenue. So I do not believe there's sufficient fund balance in the 2163 account to continue supporting large efforts going forward. So we were able to do it this year, but that fund is going to be, that fund balance is being decreased as revenues are decreasing this year currently.
Well, that's sad to hear. But I guess historically we've benefited from the boom in the housing market, and now the brakes looks like coming on somewhat. So, all right, anything else on scattered site? Okay, Keely, you want to take us into Built for Zero?
Sure, I just wanted to give an update. We're coming near the end of our first 6 months in the Built for Zero process. And what that means is we have certain benchmarks that we want to hit. One of those being we have a portfolio that is specific to Thurston County that gives us a ranking on where we are with our by name list. And if we have adequate coverage for unsheltered individuals, particularly those who are chronically homeless. And then getting a baseline of where we are with regards to the providers that are involved, how much of our data is being entered into HMIS, and then also our outreach efforts. We've been meeting on a monthly basis locally, and then we have at least 2 meetings otherwise with Built for Zero every month. And I'm getting excited. We had a really excellent meeting today with the vulnerability index team. So the VI meeting has been happening for 5, 6, 7 years. I don't even recall the original date when it began. And it was based on the model of Built for Zero. The providers at the time really believed in that model and created the VI team to be representative of it. And so CIC did an awesome job in facilitating that conversation today. Folks are excited and jazzed to see those changes happening within that meeting. And then the outreach community also really getting excited about how this tool, just even having a tool to use to plug in and take account for how many people are doing outreach, where are they doing outreach to, and then are they entering HMIS, can they do coordinated entry, and getting it on a grid has been helpful. Next week, we will be writing our outreach policy for our county, for our system, which is exciting. And then tomorrow we're doing a system-wide walkthrough with Built for Zero, where we will be walking through with that team what a client experience is like when entering our specific system. So we're hoping that a number of our homeless service providers that have been working with us on Built for Zero will join us for that, because I think that will be incredibly important information for us. So we will be convening in person in Chicago in May. For our learning session. It is intended for the lead, the data person, and then a couple key improvers to attend that learning session. So we'll be working with Providence on that in terms of accommodating the travel, as I understand it. And there we go. So we're moving right along.
Great.
Feeling excited now.
Good. Good. Any questions for Keely on that?
Keith.
Yeah, Chair Cox, I just wanted to congratulate Keely and just, I'm really excited about the level of enthusiasm you're bringing to this. I know it was, it was a long, slow, hard process to get here, but I think there are benefits that will be realized by going through this process. And obviously, Built for Zero is a good model for us to use. So thanks for that update. It's kind of heartening to see process improvement in action. So excellent.
You're here. All righty. Well, let's move on to the discussion about our upcoming retreat. 2 dates in May with this body as well as representatives from the Thurston Thrives Housing Action Team. Jim's name is on this, and that was kind of my actually terms of respect for Jim, because Jim has kind of spearheaded the move toward the retreat. But I think probably Keely and Tom have more information for us at this point. So can you let us know where you are, and then let's get some feedback.
Absolutely. So we did get a scope of work. The scope of work, based on the feedback from the Regional Housing Council last month, was adjusted to account for a higher number of interviews by taking away the line item for catering, planning on having, figuring out a brown bag lunch situation or whatever else to feed us while we're doing this work. So we're able to get more interviews in, and then we were able to settle on how payment for these services will be distributed through each jurisdiction, and each jurisdiction was in agreement. The contract is moving its way through legal at the City of Olympia. And then tomorrow, Friday, Darian and I will be meeting with Megan Picard to kind of have a kickoff conversation of, okay, where do we go from here? So it's moving along, and it's promising. We do have 2 locations. Thank you to Rick Walk and to the City of Olympia. My understanding is that we do have the Lacey Community Center for one of those days, and then the council chambers at City of Olympia City Hall for the second of those days. So really working that regional angle with our retreat. We are trying to be as accommodating as possible and trying to ensure that there's some kind of hybrid situation. So folks that do not feel comfortable or are not able to participate in person will have an accessible experience with the retreat, but we haven't landed on exactly what that looks like at this point, but we're working on it.
Okay. Have you gotten anywhere with proposed discussion topics?
Not at this time, no, we have not. And I am assuming that will be part of the conversation on Friday. Okay. And we'll get more direction from Megan at that time of how they envision moving forward with gathering those specific topics. I'm sure I'm going to hazard a guess that they're going to come largely from the interviews that are held.
Yeah. I guess I'd like to hear from this group, though, whether there's any like really burning topic that you feel like, the retreat just would be a bust if we didn't have this on the agenda. And, it may not come off the top of your head right now, but I think the earlier the better. If there is
Councilmember
something.
Hess, I think, has his hand up.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Something that, we are the Regional Housing Council. We're trying to find ways to help with affordable housing. And I'm just wondering if maybe we could also have some time to discuss ways to stop the homelessness that occurs, mostly for those that get taxed out of their houses or something like that. If we could have some kind of discussion of developing something for ideas of policies for our communities that they could use to help out those who might be in a home right now, but due to some kind of emergency, are all of a sudden will end up losing their home. And I just think it'd be something to discuss, because it's nice to be on the back end reacting to homelessness, but I also think maybe we should start also discussing how to stop some of the homelessness, not all of it, but some of it that we can go back to our jurisdictions and communicate. Just a thought.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Well, I just want to reemphasize, to me, that's one of two objectives. One being how we do the new structure and how we have advisory and how HAT fit in it. That's one body of work. And the other body of work is looking upstream. How can we actually implement the upstream ideas that are in our affordable housing plans so that we aren't always mired in these emergency interventions? I'm glad that you said that with so few meetings, Brian. You're perfect for this group.
All right.
I appreciate the kind words. It's something that I've been part of the discussion of on the outside, and finally being inside of a group that I can now go, okay, what can we do? Because on the outside, you can't do anything. Nobody wants to listen, but at least here I get a little bit of an audience that might be able to help me out. Thank you.
Okay. On the hybrid model logistics item, I realize this is probably still evolving, but from most recent conversation I had, it was sounding like a video option might not be possible on the Lacey end of it, that we might have to do conference call.
Yeah, that's as Keely said, we're still trying to figure out logistics, and because as we go into a retreat and a facilitated retreat, there's going to be a lot of in-room dynamics, breakouts, those type of things. So trying to figure out how to capture that for somebody that has access through a virtual portal, and the community center is not set up for virtual meetings, so we'd have to bring equipment in for that piece. So we're looking at other options to figure out how we can make sure it's accessible so people can hear what's going on, participate to the best extent possible within that space. And so that could be something set up as a teleconference setup, which is a little bit easier, and you can pick that up and take it to breakout rooms, those type of things. So we just try to figure out those logistics.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it's going to be challenging, and I appreciate the efforts that are being made there. But I think probably the moral of this story is that far better to try to attend in person than attend a 6-hour retreat remotely, even with the best of technology support. Okay.
Carolyn, just before you move on, it might help if at least the members and alternates let you know if they aren't feeling comfortable being in person, because to me, if one of the members or alternates is wanting hybrid, then I would want a higher level of ability for them to interact, because it is the RHC retreat. But if we're all going to be able to be there in person, then I'm probably okay with the speakerphone. That's just what popped into my head during that conversation. I don't want to ask people to do it on live camera, but if they can let you know or let their staff know their preferences, so we can have reality about the logistics, at least from this group.
Okay. Well, why don't you all let me know, so that it comes into one central location, and I'll report out to the group.
So if we don't let you know, then we're fine with it. Like, we only let you know if we have concerns, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Just saved myself an email. Cool.
Thanks. All righty. We ready to move on to the revised meeting schedule? All righty. So 2 parts. One, a reminder that our next meeting is going to be coming up. Let's get to a calendar here. On April 13th at 4 o'clock. And this will be the 1 hour business meeting. And again, the design of this meeting is for time sensitive issues that need decisions so that we can move more efficiently and effectively. We won't have full out tech team reports. We won't have verbal public comment. If people want to submit public comment, they'll be able to do that. But this will be, if you think about it as a city council or county commissioner, it'd be like just a quick business meeting and without any of the other thrills, designed to just get it over with and take care of business. And then our second meeting of the month, I'd like to keep us on the same schedule for now. And if we don't need that full 2 hours, we can adjourn early, or we can just schedule it so that we end a little earlier. But let's keep the time on our calendars for now and see how this settles in, and hopefully it will be a go, or we can adjust. And then there was a question of whether we continue with virtual meetings of this body, or whether we want to have an in-person meetings with a hybrid model. And would we kind of get your thoughts on that? Brian?
I would like to make sure that we still have the virtual hybrid. The only reason why is that if something happens to where I'm not able to make it in to wherever, to the county buildings to be able to be part of the meeting, I can still participate. It's just being able to do that. I mean, the past 2 years has shown that we can do virtual meetings. And I just think the hybrid model will be really good for those to encourage more participation from everybody on a regular basis. Thank you.
Okay, Carolina?
I second what Brian says. I would prefer it to be virtual, but if some people really want to be in person, then I'm in support of a hybrid.
Okay. Well, I personally think that this meeting is working okay in virtual format, and it certainly saves transit time, certainly saves getting vehicle exhaust in the air and that sort of thing. But is anybody having heartburn to go to an in-person meeting? And if so, we need to figure out where.
Jim has his hand up, Carolyn.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm actually with Carolina on full virtual, though I think it would be good to plan 3 or 4, like maybe 3 times a year or quarterly, where we are doing a hybrid or an in-person, just so we have the connection with each other. I think that's important and something that we don't get virtually. But overall, I would say let's get through the retreat and then look at a work plan coming out of it and the schedule. There's no way I can do this in person if it's during the afternoon. Like, I need to have the instant transition.
Right. I know it makes it difficult for lots of folks. Well, any other thoughts on this?
I just sort of agree with the consensus. I mean, for our part, for our city committees, we're going to be virtual moving forward in perpetuity. Those are just going to be virtual meetings from now on. Our work sessions will be hybrid, and all of our council meetings will also require a hybrid option too, if we want it, so that we can have that flexibility. And also, I mean, I think it's also a lot more convenient for staff too, who don't have to waste that time driving across the county to get to these meetings if we do it in person. So I think hybrid is great.
Yep.
Or all virtual, also great.
All right. Well, I think Jim's suggestion is a good one. Let's get through the retreat and work plan and kind of see where we are with this. Well, amazingly, we have time for good of the order today. So I'd like to have a check-in maybe from each of our entities. Anybody want to go first?
I'll gladly go first.
All right, Brian?
Just to let you know, for the city of Yelm, it is still not known about our water rights. We do have a lot of developments that are getting ready to kind of that are waiting just for water rights. We have some apartment complexes. Just to share with you this week from the planning committee, our planners, they recommended some changes. It's going to take some time to get our planning commission to kind of understand and get online that it's a good thing to have a mixture of single family homes and townhouses in the same development. That was something that came up during the conversation. And so I will be honest, I'm going to be trying to do some research to try to find other cities that have done this in the past to show that it does not affect home prices, property values, or anything else like that. But it was also a great opportunity for affordable housing to allow people, as I was advocating, it allows people to feel part of a community and not having to pay $500,000 to enter said community. So in reference to affordable housing, we are at Yelm. I'm in the process of working with our planners as well as the planning commission on trying to get that to kind of kickstart and become more a reality than just a discussion. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Ms. Thomasy? Anybody want to go next?
Jim has his hand up.
Somebody is going to remind me to never complain about my white hand not being seen on white backgrounds. It's something that has been coming to my race for a long time. So I wanted to just ask Keely if she can help me with Monday is the Homeless Hero Award ceremony. Can you help us? Is there a way we register or get that information forwarded out to us if it's not already out?
Sure. I can definitely forward it to Nicole to make sure that everyone at the Regional Housing Council has that invitation. It's a Zoom. There's no registration required. It'd be wonderful to have any of you there. I know that some of you have been planning to come. It should be a delightful day or hour in your day on Monday. So I will definitely forward the email that Trish sent out to Nicole.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it looks like it'll be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Keith?
Councilmember Cox, I just wanted to let Councilmember Hess know that, if he wants to reach out to the city of Olympia, we've obviously done a lot of work in the areas of missing middle, and we've got some folks that are really expert in those conversations on staff now, Leonard Bauer and Joyce Phillips, just to name a couple, and they would be happy to help with those conversations. So.
All righty. Thanks. Anything from Tumwater?
I guess two small things. We at our most recent council work session, we reallocated some CDBG dollars that were going to one project that didn't pan out, reallocated those to Habitat for the Tumwater Habitat project. And we also had a work session yesterday about some of the measures that we're considering for housing stability purposes, some policies, particularly around tenant protections. So we had a good work session about that yesterday.
Thank you. Carolina, do you have anything you want to share, or Romero?
Can't think of anything, Romero. Do you have?
No, I think from the county's perspective, we cover all the present issues, the home fund, the potential hotel acquisition, as well as the property acquisition. So nothing relevant to this group to update you on.
All right. Keely.
Just really quickly, something that it's not a surprise, but the Homeless Crisis Response Plan Work Group has been meeting, and we've been doing some exciting restructuring of how we understand what strategies we have facing us, and really looking at the plan and things we need to tweak, who belongs to what strategy, that kind of thing. And we're hoping to incorporate that as a standing item in the Regional Housing Council, either on a monthly or quarterly basis. So just wanting to get that as a standing, like if this is our North Star, then let's be reviewing it as frequently as possible. So just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. Good. Keith, is your hand raised again, or?
It is. I just wanted to comment that last night at our city council meeting, our city council had a robust conversation about our Boulevard Road property. The city of Olympia did an RFP, a request for proposals for our Boulevard Road property. It's 10 acres located near Log Cabin and Boulevard Road. We received 10 proposals. We went to city council last night and reviewed those proposals, and we're continuing to evaluate them. But it's really exciting that that level of participation and interest exists, and it's a range of different options, ranging from, you know, straight market to entirely affordable. And I'm confident that we're going to end up with a really exciting and interesting and affordable project going forward. So maybe Councilmember Cooper has another word to say on that as well.
I would just say we asked for some general affordability, sort of in the upper, anywhere from, I think, 30 to 100% of AMI. So it was really broad, and getting that many applications with really no other incentives on the table by the city. Folks are asking for them in their applications, but it was pretty phenomenal. We did not have that kind of experience when we went out before the pandemic. Keith, did we get 3 responses before? Yeah, we got 3 responses, and it didn't pan out. So, so if you're sitting on a piece of property that's prime for housing development, you might not even need the RHC.
Ready? He said with tongue in cheek, I assume, right? No, okay. Alrighty. Well, from Lacey's standpoint, Rick and his crew did just kind of a stunning presentation to our Land Use and Environment Committee yesterday, and he's got all kinds of slides and data and stuff that I wanted to see if you all would be interested in seeing. Just, the amount of multifamily housing going in, strategies we're doing for incentivizing low-income housing and the like. And just, yeah, it's pretty amazing. And one of the things we had started to do as a group early on was try to share that kind of information and policies so that we're not all working in our own little silos on that. So is that something you all would like to see? Yeah, no? We're going to give it to you anyway.
I'd love to take a look. Thanks for offering, Carol.
Okay, thanks. Rick, is there
I think my head nod was not visible or reflective of my desire to take a look.
Okay. Rick, is there anything you want to just say quickly about all that?
Well, I'll probably, if I presented that, because that was there's a lot of stuff in there. So I might abbreviate it a little bit just to focus on the housing, because what it is partly about the housing market dynamics that we've been experiencing, but then also what are the active development projects, and both in multifamily and commercial. So I might pare it down and just really talk about the housing market that we've been experiencing in Lacey, which I think can transfer countywide too.
Thank you. And I just wanted to report, I had a very interesting conversation last week with Jeff Johnson, who is the new executive director of the ORCA Clean Air Authority. And he was wanting to know if there was anything this body could do with ORCA in terms of the impact that the homeless encampments are having on air quality. And there have been instances in the past where there have been some pretty toxic substances burned that affected nearby businesses and that sort of thing. And we talked about their role would be educational outreach and all. And he was just wanting to offer Orca as a resource. And I just kind of wanted to put that out there and see if anybody has questions about that. Well, let's let it float there.
I guess I'll just throw something out. I'm the chair of the board for the Clean Air Agency, Carolyn, and
Okay.
I see, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Scott Spence had his hand up for a while.
oh, cool. And just I would just say, there's been some cool stuff with houseless people and Orca that are actually out promoting the rules and the code now, and it's kind of neat. I don't think that the houseless population comes anywhere near other emission sources when it comes to air quality. So I want to make sure that we don't, cast that stigma around the camps. It's a nuisance for neighboring properties. That's when Orca interact. So smoke on your property versus toxic air for the broader community. And I am sure, I've been watching this now for quite a few years. I think the number one thing that we could do as a region is find a way to get a safe, low cost heating product into the hands of these houseless individuals that they can use in their camps that's not a campfire. And whether we fund an interfaith or somebody to do that, or OliMap, or whether we went out and bought a pallet and granted them out, to me that's the biggest opportunity, is to give people an option other than a fire, and no one's doing that. And I know there's a lot of liability associated with that as well.
Sure. That was part of the conversation too, was how to make fires a little safer. Scott, and then Keely.
So I just want to mention that we did finalize an agreement with Homes First, and this will be to purchase or acquire a house to house 4 adult teens, at least 18, but still going to school. So we're looking forward to that partnership. And the other thing I was going to mention, we were successful in getting a capital budget request from the state this year. And we'd like to, again, buy a house kind of based on an Oxford model. And so we can help those that are having issues with drug addiction and get them on a better path, but kind of based on that same model. So we're exploring that also, to purchase a house and also find a partner that help operate that for us.
Thanks, Scott. Keely?
I had nothing further.
Oh, okay. Were you just wanting to let me know about?
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Hand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, Jim talks about his white hand, but it does hand raise completely blends in with your background. It's hard to see on my screen. So, all right. Anything else for the good of the order? No? Well, who wants to make a happy motion to adjourn then? Okay. All righty. Well, thank you all. It's been, I think, a good meeting, and we'll look forward to seeing you in about 2 weeks. Great. Thanks.